This is Chad Jones with Jones Solar and Roofing.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me, Tom. Like you said, I'm Chad Jones, and I do roofing and solar and energy management.
Okay. Off by asking a little bit about your history. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? How did you start the company? Tell me about yourself a little bit.
I grew up in Allen and Plano, mostly.
High school?
Allen High School, class of '87. Graduated from Pesh,
Okay.
so
And I think you said you went to the army, into the army.
I was in the army. When I got out of the army, I went to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. I was a Honda factory certified technician. Worked at Plano Honda.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I went back to school. I got my telecommunications engineering degree. Up in a school in Kansas that specializes in that degree. After that, I went to work for Nortel Networks,
Okay.
Northern Telecom, that
Mhm.
used to be there in 75, in Campbell and Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
I built wireless networks, cell site construction, infrastructure, everything like that for Verizon, AT&T.
So you got a strong technical background.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure, for sure.
Okay. And when did you start Jones Solar and Roofing?
Uh, I started Jones Solar and Roofing in 2009.
If people are interested in contacting you, how do they get in touch with you?
Probably email or cell phone is best.
Okay. What's your cell phone?
My cell phone is 972-841-2164.
An email?
Is Chad, CHADD, two D's, at jonessolar.com.
Okay, good. All right, let me start off with the very basic questions because as I said, I know very little about solar. But my first question is, and I'm sure most of the people are going to wonder this: when you put a system on a roof, what's a general? Is there a rule of thumb on the payback before you start getting ahead? And I know everything's probably different for the size of the home or for the usage, but is it like a 5 year payout, do you think, before you start making, coming out ahead with your electric? Is it 10 years?
Sure, sure. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, how you look at it, here in Texas, we have pretty low electrical rates compared to the rest of the United States. So in California, people are paying 25, 30 cents a kilowatt hour in some areas. Here in Texas, we're pretty much, if you're in the Encore, you're around 10 to 12 cents where you should be.
Okay.
So definitely one thing I would encourage everybody to do at the very beginning is go to powertochoose.org or another institution online, and if you're in the Encore service area, and find a service provider that gives you the best deal.
Okay.
For what you can do. We run across a lot of people that just haven't even thought about it for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Right.
And they're paying, they're paying, 15, 16 cents a kilowatt hour, and they could be paying 10, 11.
Right. We actually live in Lucas, and we're part of the Grayson Collin co-op, so we don't have any choices, unfortunately.
No.
I wish we could shop, but we just can't.
No, absolutely. It's the same way. Texas is a deregulated market, like it says like that. The co-ops are ruled by the Rural Electric Co-op Organization, and that was basically in the beginning when there was no electricity any place in the country. Then the government came and said, if you provide electrical service area for this area, then you can now control all that area, and that's how the co-ops came to be. So
I didn't realize that. And they're not going to let go of those areas.
No, it's federally mandated. They own that area as long as they maintain it and service it.
Depending, we've had good luck with them. They've been good with us, but what if they do a terrible job and people start complaining?
Right. Actually, most co-ops are member owned. So most people do have voting rights, and there's also representatives in your area. But most of that stuff is they try not to rock the boat too much. They're probably marginal as far as solar preparedness and the ability to help with your solar situation. Most co-ops are not going to really offer an incentive per se, because they make money when they sell electricity.
Right. But why wouldn't every electric company be like that? Why is it to their advantage to buy electricity back from somebody?
But yeah, electricity as it goes into solar, it's the process that we interact with the grid is called net metering. That's the law here in the state of Texas. And what it says is, if you have a house and you produce electricity, that the electric company has to allow you to put that excess electricity back on the grid.
Okay.
Now, they don't go into how they have to allow you. So most electric companies are going to give you the wholesale rate for your electricity.
Oh, they don't buy it back at the rate they're charging the customers.
Most do not, no, because
Okay.
they make money
Right.
by buying
Right.
electricity
Are
from
they
the
required to buy electricity back?
They are required to have a program to accept that electricity.
Okay.
So at Grace and Collin, I'm also in Grace and Collin. With Grace and Collin, they have what's called their net metering program is they give you a 1-for-1 credit.
Mm-hmm.
So every kilowatt hour that I send them from my solar system that my house does not use, then they give me that credit back at night.
Okay.
Or when the sun's not shining.
Right.
The only problem with it is they have a monthly true up. So you kind of, obviously, as the sun goes throughout the year, so does your electric bill.
Right.
And there's a little bit of leeway in there, but they just do a monthly true up. So at the end of every month, I don't have any credits to carry over if I do.
Okay. So it's really impossible. Well, the good news is, and I didn't realize this, compared to other states, we've got low electric utility.
Very low rates.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the lowest in the United States by far.
Okay. So why would someone want to put a solar panels on top of their roof? What's the advantage?
Well, as I go across in my journeys, I find there's two types of people. Right, they're both green. One's green for the environment. One's green for their pocketbook.
Mm-hmm.
So I always ask people, which one are you? Because each one of them has a different set of criteria that they're looking to, get qualified for. People for the environment, obviously they have an environmental reason. They want to do it for clean air, clean water, sustainable energy.
Right.
The most people that do it for their pocketbook are looking for the payoff and the return, and or security. A lot of people will buy, here in Texas, we have a pretty good electric grid. It hardly ever goes out. Every couple of years we'll have an ice storm and it's out for a couple of days or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And people have generators. People buy generators, backup generators for their homes, et cetera, like that. Now, solar and batteries have gotten to the point where they can pretty much take care of that all at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's really it's really hard to give a number of years that it would take you to really for this to start being advantageous to you. It depends on your energy use, and do you have even a ballpark 5 years before it starts making you money?
It is. I mean, obviously the biggest factor that most people have around here is how much roof space do you have at the proper angle.
Right.
So south facing roof face is the best. If it has, no hips, no dormers, no exhaust venting, skylights, anything
so a
like
long ranch style home with a long roof facing south, that's the ideal condition.
That's the ideal.
Okay.
Absolutely. When you get into 2 and 3 hipped roofs and stuff, it really chops it up.
Right.
And you can't come in and build a structure on top of that to mount the solar panels to.
Okay, and then the so north facing would probably be the worst for panels.
That is the worst. Yeah, absolutely. So most people either a south face or an east west.
Oh, really? You'll get enough electric out of east facing?
I do, but it's about 150% more size of the system to get the same electricity as a south-facing roof. So the cost is a little bit more expensive.
Okay. And out of curiosity, why do you call it solar and roofing? You do both?
Absolutely. I've been as I came into the solar group world, I just kind of moved up, and I kept finding I needed to have roofers. I had some roofers I worked with, but at the end, I found it was just easiest for myself just to actually incorporate roofing into my company as well. And I've been doing roofing, commercial and residential, for a little over 3 years now.
Okay. When you put on a let's say someone decides, okay, I want a solar panels on my home, they're going to have to get permission from their homeowners association, I would assume. And
yes.
We had talked about that's a challenge at times, because if you've got a home is facing to the south and you want to put roof panels on or solar panels on, and people drive down, they're going to see those. HOAs probably aren't real crazy about that idea.
Here in the state of Texas, we have solar rights laws. I think it's House Bill 672 or something like that. It's actually Texas state law that no one can stop you from putting solar on your house. It does have a caveat for homeowners associations where they can basically dictate to the color of the solar panels. 6 or 7 years ago, solar panels were blue wafers with silver.
Right.
Framing, right?
Yeah.
Now pretty much everything is black on black. It blends in much more with the houses. It's a lower mounting system. Every year the mounting system gets better, so it gets closer to the roof.
Okay.
And it gets a lot more aesthetically pleasing all the way around. Now here in Allen, for example, they have a city ordinance that there's no solar allowed on the street facing side of the home.
Okay.
Which usually means the front side of the home. Right. If it's facing the street. I think on the side they don't really matter that much, but on the front for sure.
So what happens if someone says, I want to put it on, the state says I can, you're saying I can't, who wins?
That's a very interesting question.
Has it been challenged?
It has been challenged. It has been challenged, and the state law is pretty much supersedes all civil ordinances. I think in most cases like that, they'll probably do like a 1-for-1 or a planning zoning hearing or something like that and get you a special use permit if you really push it.
Wow, I can see that being a real bugaboo for some of these very high-end residential neighborhoods. The first guy puts it on, they give him a special use permit, and then the guy next door puts one on, the guy next door. But it's
I guess if you get enough of them, that's the homeowners association, so you actually take over the homeowners association. Right. I guess in that case.
Right.
We also do other things. We do solar covered patios, gazebos, solar covered carports and driveway covers. And to really make it advantageous, it's really about scale, because that's where people really see the difference. If I'm going to put 2 solar panels on your home, it's not going to do much for you.
Yeah, I was wondering why even bother if you're going to do something that small.
Absolutely. It's not even worth it. So I mean, most systems come in, and it's really going back to the roof, the limitations in the roof to what size system you can do, to go back to address your cost systems, because that's what it's all about, right? Is cost, and you have to be able to produce enough to offset your cost to produce your savings to make it worthwhile to you all in the background. Right. So it's all a great big circle all the way around into that. And it all starts with space.
Okay. Say I don't know if you can make a ballpark estimate like this, but let's take a 3,000 square foot ranch style home, all south facing, the roof all the way across. What would be an average cost estimate of something like that? I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire.
No, absolutely, for sure. So in that they're probably using about anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 kilowatt hours a month, because that's how solar is measured in kilowatts, like gasoline you do by the gallon, miles per gallon, kind of the same thing for electricity production. So, in that case, what you're going to do for solar is the National Renewable Energy Laboratories, which the U.S. government has done, extensive testing and background and science on all this stuff. So they have what's called the solar meet. So that's the time in the afternoon after sunrise and before sunset when you get the best sun of the day based upon your latitude. Where we are here, we're about 32 degrees. So a 32 degree panel is the perfect angle for our area. So most houses are about 20, 24 degrees. So they're a little bit off. And then you go to the big commercial buildings and they've got flat roofs. So they're at a 0 angle. So they're even off more. So it all has to do with your year-round production. So the government has done extensive testing in all this regards, and they found that here and where we are in Dallas-Fort Worth, we get about 5.25 hours of perfect sunlight a day.
Okay.
So that being said, if you've got a 10,000 watt solar system, which is about what you would need for that size home, and you multiply that by 5.25 hours a day, so that's about a little over 50 kilowatt hours a day.
All right.
And then you would do that by 30 days, and that would give you about 1,500 kilowatt hours a month.
All right.
Is how you do that math. It's a pretty basic, cut and dry way of what we can size it.
What would it cost to put a system like that in?
Usually a retail on that here in the area kind of goes a little bit different. We have some nationwide installers. We have some local installers. So everybody prices are a little bit different. It also depends on if you're paying cash or financing.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
the financing has quite a bit of a markup. The finance company is going to get their cut for sure.
So but finance companies that will obviously will.
Oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, it is solar is a appraisable item for residential and commercial, so it does have value. So most finance companies, I mean, all the way down to Wells Fargo, just about anybody will really finance solar.
And I imagine it's insurable too.
Absolutely, you definitely want to have it insured for hail and cosmetic damage, whatever case you normally carry on your home.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to that in a second. But what would it cost to put a system like that on a
Sure.
3,000 square foot home?
So any here in Dallas Fort Worth, you should be looking basically anywhere from around about $3 a watt.
Okay.
So that was a 10,000 watt system, so it'd be about $30,000.
Okay. And any idea how long it would take to get that back?
Well, right now, there's the federal tax investment credit, and that's about 30% from the federal government. So if you started with a $30,000 system, then you turn that in when you file your taxes. Just as a line, did you buy solar this year? You put the dollar amount in there, and it's an actual tax credit. It's not a deduction. So you will get, if you paid $30,000 for your system, you would get a check. Depending upon your tax liability, if you have the amount to roll that full amount into the first year. If not, they'll let it roll out 4 or 5 years to collect the whole advantage. But you're looking at about a $10,000 check from the federal government. So now your $30,000 system is $20,000. So now that $20,000 system, if you take that and what it's producing, 1,500 kilowatt hours a month at 10 cents, which is about $150 a month. So now you're saving about $150 a month on your electric bill. So that's a little, $1,700 a year or something like that.
And to make up that 20,000, what's 20,000 divided by 1,700? Well,
yeah, that's a good question. It's 11.7 years.
Okay. All right, 11.7 years.
And that's just rough math.
Okay.
So that's about 11.7 years. And then if you work that out, and that's at no price increase. So that's if you're paying 10 cents, which most people are actually paying 12. So there's a 2% error in there that we're already looking at in that regards. But normally here in the state of Texas, electricity goes up about 3% per year. So if you start adding a 3% per year adder on that by the end of 10 years. It gets much shorter. So in most cases, we look on residential about a 9-year payoff, somewhere around in there, depending on where you are, and that's on Encore. Now, if you're in Grayson Collin, where you're paying 12 cents a kilowatt hour, then obviously your payoff's a little shorter because your electricity costs more, so you're producing more savings with your system.
Okay, someone says, great idea, love it, I'm going to do it. I figure it's going to take 9 or 10 years to get it back, but I'm planning on living in this home for 20 or 30 years. They're the type that likes to be off the grid as much as possible. They say, let's put one on our roof. What's it going to do to the roof when you're up there walking around on it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously anything you can do will disturb the granules on your roof. The first thing we do is we do a roof inspection. Fortunately, here in Texas, you're not really ever going to come across a 15, 20-year-old roof that often.
That's because of hailstorms, by the way.
Yeah.
Hail and wind if you don't live in Texas.
Right. Catastrophic weather area. We are here in North Texas now. So,
is that a designation?
Yeah, by the insurance organization. We pay some of the highest insurance rates in the entire United States.
I didn't know we were designated as such.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your house, you might as well be living on the beach in Miami with your house. So, for here in North Texas, just because of the wind and the rain and tornadoes and ice. I mean, we pretty much get it. You gotta be tough to live in Texas, right?
You do, for sure. So you have to walk on the roof. Obviously, there's no way getting around that. How much damage is that going to do to the roof? And let's say that if it does impact the roof and you have to put a new roof on, then what happens with your solar panels?
Yeah, absolutely. It all depends on, if you have damage to your roof. If we're doing our initial inspection, on that, and we can see that, then obviously we would have, probably file an insurance claim and go through the process on that to replace the roof. And most times when I replace the roof, when I'm putting a solar system on, I always recommend going to a class 4 shingle upgrade, because that's going to be basically a lifetime shingle. And if you're going to put the solar system up there, that's going to be sitting on your roof for about 20 years. You want a shingle that's easily going to be able to handle that run here in North Texas as well.
But you can put it on an existing roof that's maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, and it's not going to be an issue.
In most cases, it won't be. Obviously, it depends on the time of year. Some, I mean, you don't want to be up there when it's 110 degrees outside, running around carrying panels and everything on the roof. And a lot of that has to go into just the skill of it. The installation has gone improved by leaps and bounds since the over 10 years that I've been in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot better systems now. All the materials are stronger and lighter, and they require less hardware and everything. So it's getting more and more into the case. Now that's just a regular solar shingle that most people see, whereas the 3x5 glass with the thing. Now I also do have 2 solar shingle products that are
like Tesla has been.
Tesla is theirs is called a solar glass roof. The other 2 brands that I have, CertainTeed Master Solar Installer here in the United States. CertainTeed is one of the largest shingle companies in the United States. They're owned by the company Saint Gobain, and they have a program, since I'm a master installer, that any system that I install, they will carry a 20-year warranty from CertainTeed on. So that's parts, labor, workmanship, everything, because I'm a master installer. So they'll carry.
I'm going to ask you about that a little bit more in a second, but the difference between the shingles and the panels. Tell me what's preferred if you were starting with a brand new home.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do? What would you advise?
It goes back to my initial question. Which type of green are you? Because obviously there is a pretty substantial cost difference between a solar shingle and a solar panel. Right now, solar shingles have been out for a little over a year to 2 years right now. And the Tesla solar glass roof is getting ready to really come out here after the first of the year, I think, into production. And that's a whole different setup.
I thought they were already putting them on our roofs. They had a problem with one already. Tell me about that. I think we discussed this last time we talked.
Yes, I think they're just came out with their newest solar roof is their version 3. Obviously, it's a much improved over version 1 and version 2.
Did they have a fire on one of them?
I think there have been a couple of fires, but that's with their regular solar panel. And I think that had to do with some technical issues as far as mechanical crimping tools and that kind of stuff, not doing proper crimps and leaving some little pieces of wire. I think it was an installation issue, not an equipment issue for sure.
And cost-wise, percentage-wise, how much more are the shingles? Can you tell a roof that has solar shingles versus one that shingles that aren't solar?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to be putting up some pictures here as we're talking.
Okay. A solar panel, a normal solar panel, because of air ventilation underneath, because it's glass, it's black, it's going to produce heat. Your roof produces heat. So they always like to leave a little bit of an air gap. So there's normally anywhere from 2 to 6 inch air gap that they like to leave in there to really cool off the electronics. So a regular solar panel will stand off the roof 2 to 6 inches, where a solar shingle is actually made to lay on the same plane as the shingles, so it's flatter. Now it does stick up depending upon the product. One of them I have is about a 1/4 inch taller than the shingle. So if you come in with a nice class 4 shingle that's a thicker, taller shingle anyway, it's going to be a very negligible difference. And just looking at it from the side, then you're like, oh, hey, wait, those are solar. And then one is where they make like a smaller solar panel, a 1 foot by 3 foot, instead of a 3 foot by 5 foot solar panel.
Okay.
And so they kind of make it smaller solar panels, and they integrate it onto the roof that way.
Percentage-wise, how much more expensive are the shingles than the panels, would you say?
Substantial.
40 to 50% more?
Uh, minimum 50 to probably 80% more.
All right.
So, almost, twice the cost.
And what is the purpose of putting solar shingles on the north side of a home if they can't, if they're not going to be bringing in much electricity?
Right. No. So, but in those cases, we still wouldn't put it on the north side of the house. Myself, some people have different opinions about that. They will put it on the north side of the house. I myself don't.
So you'd have two different looks from the front to the back of the home.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. But you would have that with a normal solar panel as well. It's just not going to be as substantial look.
All right. Now you talked about being a master installer. Tell me a little bit about what that designation is. How does that help you stand out from the competition?
Sure, absolutely. It basically says that I've installed enough solar in the megawatts. I've been doing it for 10 years now, so there's been quite, I've done everything from schools to warehouses to people's houses to, all kinds of systems and sizes. So I've installed enough and have enough of a business history background.
And without problems.
Without problems, absolutely. I have a TECL license. I'm a Texas electrical contractor. So I have master electricians that work with me, as well as my installers and roofers.
And how long does it take to, let's say, well, first of all, I was going to ask you this. Is it best really to put your solar on at the time you're building a new home rather than coming in afterwards and putting it on so you can put a higher grade roof on at the same time underneath those panels? Or is it a big deal to put it on after the home's 3 or 4 years old?
Well, as soon as possible is always my answer, right? Because the sooner you start paying for it, it's realizing the savings, then the sooner it's going to be paid off, right? If you're going to be into a home, and most solar systems, that's going to be transferable. So if somebody comes in and buys a house from you 10 years and the system's paid off, then
it's a nice plus.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's very nice. But as far as doing new home, that could do. There is a financial instrument. It's called a green mortgage. It may have an actual particular name. I'm not sure. I just call it the green mortgage. But it's run out of Austin. There's a group in Austin that supplies it, and it's a Fannie Mae Fannie Mac product. So they will allow you to add $70,000 over the appraised value of a home to add renewables and energy improvements to your home. Okay. And it's also a quarter point lower than the current rate is. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty good product if you're doing a new home. It doesn't have to be a new home, obviously. Right. But it is always very nice because then you also have access to all the internals. You're not having to run conduit on the outside of the house or do any other knocking out drywall and rerunning stuff if you do an initial build.
How the heck do you reproduce? How do you do another roof on a home that needs to be re-roofed? How do you work underneath those solar panels?
Yeah, I take them completely off. So we actually have to go to the home and remove all the solar panels and store everything.
But the struts or the whatever, I don't know what you call them, the supporting members, the braces, you just work around those with the roof, just like it would be any other penetration through the roof. You just roof it. Just like everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to come in with a metal flashing. It's normally like a 1 by 1 of 1 foot by 1 foot metal flashing that we would slide underneath the shingle above it so that the shingle would come over the top. And then we have a lag bolt or a lag screw that we would then drill in through the rafters. Right. And most of the times when we re-roof nowadays, it's gotten to the point where we just leave that flashing in place. Mm-hmm. So we're not having to take it out. So if we come back and put the system back on the house, we don't have to re-drill new holes in the rafters and everything. Everything should be there. But we take it completely down to the shingles.
And you then re-roof. You could do it, or they could hire someone else to re-roof. Is that correct, or do you guys have to do it?
No. Someone else can do it. Absolutely. Okay. But normally I always recommend to people that use me because if there's a problem with your roof, then I'm probably the person that needs to come and look at it anyway because it has to be taken on and off.
How much of your business is outside the city boundaries versus solar systems inside cities?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Um, it's probably about 70-30, 70 in the city and 30% on the outside.
I thought it'd be just the opposite.
Really?
I would think as you move out, you want to. Those are the people that tend to think I want to get off the grid, and I'm going to do the things that make me more self-sustainable.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that'd have been just the opposite.
Yeah, but it's really not. I mean, but if you're definitely building a house in the country, I always recommend everybody to look at solar first because just say you go buy 20, 30 acres and you're like, you have a beautiful place by a pond that you want to build a house, but there's no electricity to that piece of property. So then you have to call, Grayson Collin Co-op, for example, and they're going to come out and give you a price to run electricity.
That's a very good point. You don't have to necessarily, I see this a lot, and I don't know, I think I know why. Homes on 10, 20, 30 acres are all sitting kind of next to the road.
Yes.
And I would think if I had 20 acres, I would put that sucker back in the middle as far away as I can, but I know you've got to run the concrete and you've got to run the electric back there. But that's a good point with solar. You don't have to run that electric.
No.
And instead of concrete, you can go with you can go with asphalt, or you could go with gravel if you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would save you a lot of money. And concrete's very expensive. Good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I mean, electricity is expensive. I mean, if you live, if they're going to run, whatever, a couple, 1,000 foot of overhead lines to your home, I mean, that costs, tens of thousands of dollars usually. And that's if there's a transformer there. If there's no transformer, they have to add a transformer. That costs more money. Then they're going to put a meter. They're going to charge you $15 a month just to have a meter, and then you've got to buy electricity for the rest of your life from them.
Interesting. How much of your business is commercial versus residential?
I'd say out of what I do in the city, I'm probably about 70% commercial, 30% residential.
And it makes more sense, I would imagine, with commercial.
Commercial is a much better break-even point.
Right. Faster break-even for commercial, would you say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because it's a capital asset. So it's a depreciable item when it comes into your building. And right now, the FTIC is 30% solar on the commercial side, as well as solar has a 5-year depreciation schedule per the IRS. And right now you can bring 100% of that depreciation into the first year.
Okay.
So most people with about a 30% corporate tax rate would be looking about a 30% additional savings from that depreciation. So you would get 30% from the federal government, 30% in accelerated depreciation, and then you would be left with the remaining, 40% that you have to pay for over the same amount of time. Whereas in residential, you're 70%. So it's quite a substantial difference.
And I guess with flat roofs, those are great, I would imagine, because you can point those arrays, that's what I call them, I don't know what you call them, you can point those panels in any direction you want, ideally. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, south is where you want to be. There's no doubt about that. Now there's for the flat roof, like I talked about it, the 32 degrees is the perfect angle here for our latitude. So on a flat roof, you just lay them flat, they're to 0 degrees. So, they're going to produce a lot during the summer when the sun is directly overhead. But as winter comes and the sun moves off to the south, then their angle of incidence is what they call it is off. So your production
goes down. Those at have a system that drops those down, so in the winter it lays, or in the summer it's flat, but in the winter it comes up.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough because of here in this area we build everything to about 130 mile an hour wind rating.
Okay.
So when you come in and you do that on a flat roof and you're putting a 3x5 piece of glass that only weighs 40 pounds, I mean, the wind really loves that stuff.
Yeah.
So we have to put in a lot of ballast. And when we do that, it limits our movability and our range in that. Okay. Most systems are going to be about a 10% angle of incidence here that we can add to a flat roof. Okay. So we will increase that year-round production a little bit, but I'm still only a third away to my 30%. So now on ground mount systems, we actually have trackers that will move east to west from the morning sun to the evening sun, and then you have dual tractors that will move east, west, and north, south, depending upon the time of year.
Okay.
Now, those are moving components, and they cost a lot more,
Right.
but your production is 100%
amplified. Yeah.
every day, all day long. So
rough time of estimate of time to put on a typical residential roof. How long would you say?
For the solar or roofing?
For solar. Roofing, I'm pretty familiar with. But
right.
I'm asking some questions about that too.
Yeah.
For solar.
Yeah. For solar, it all depends on how difficult it is. If it's like I said, a single ranch house, obviously that's just everything's just there. It's flat. It's very easy to work with. If you're moving with a different house or an east-west house, and you have 3 or 4 or 5 different planes where you're going to try to mount some solar panels to maximize your production,
it's going to take a lot longer.
It takes quite a bit longer.
Let's go back to that 3,000 square foot long ranch house. How long would it take to put that system?
That system from beginning to end should take about 4 days.
Okay, and a roof usually I factor in 2 days for a roof, so it's not that not that long. I didn't know if it would take a week or 10 days or whatever. Yeah.
It all depends on just how that is, and obviously on the electrical side too, we have to do an electrical inspection on the home. If you live in an older house, before 2005, there was no Energy Star rating, so homes were built entirely different back then than they are now. Before 2005, and you go back into the 80s and the 70s, you're coming to a lot of federal main 200 amp boxes or 150 amp boxes in people's homes, and per code you have to replace those now when you do anything to the electrical system. So sometimes there is an added cost on that, depending on if you live in an older home. You may have to do some electrical upgrades in the house to handle the increase of electricity.
Okay. How much proportion of your business is roofing versus solar?
It kind of goes from year to year. Obviously the last couple of years we've had some rather big hailstorms.
So when we get a hailstorm moving through, obviously that takes up more of your time and energy, and that's more of a money generator, I guess.
Well, not like that, but it's more on people's minds.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, oh, this is it'll go hit like the entire Frisco, or so you go to Frisco and everybody in Frisco is just thinking about getting their roof replaced. They're not thinking about solar, really, right? But if you actually are smart, you can tie them in at the same time. There's a lot of advantages to that.
And so we've got cost down, we've got payback, general payback on time. What happens if how much damage are you going to be doing to a roof if you're installing on an existing roof? I can't think of any. What are the downsides except for cost and amount of time for payback? Are there any downsides to solar?
No, not really. It's a passive product, so it just lays there on the roof, and most of the times that's just about it.
How big a hailstone would it take to crack one of those?
They all have about 5mm safety glass, and it's has different properties. It's not just regular like window glass. It has different properties to disperse the light as it comes through the glass to hit the panels evenly. So it makes it a little bit stronger. And they are all rated to about 2-inch hail at about 200 miles an hour.
So it's about like that, 200 miles an hour. That's pretty.
Yeah,
severe.
That's about what hail comes down at. It's about a class 3 rating on a shingle, if you want to look at that. So it's about a normal shingle rating.
Anything you want to add that I haven't asked? Any questions that I haven't asked that you'd like to talk about?
Well, definitely there's battery systems that we haven't quite gone into yet. That's an entire different area for people that are really looking to manage their energy. You have a lot of people now that are moving into electric cars. So people are starting to look at electricity in an entirely different way. Like I always tell people, if you could plant a gasoline tree in your backyard, would you do it? Well, of course you would, right? You use gasoline for your car. Well, now if I could say to people, well, if you could put a panel on your roof that would produce electricity that would power your house.
That would store the electricity.
And store the electricity with a battery system and tie it in and charge your car at the same time. Would you do that? Well, of course it makes sense because now all three things are working off the same medium.
Right.
So definitely storage is where it's at. We do 2 products right now. We'll be adding another third one. I know earlier you talked about the Tesla solar roof. There'll be some pretty interesting news coming out after the first of the year in regards to that, and our company. And we also
you can't give me a little hint on that.
I really can't. I'm sorry.
I gotta ask. Are you
know,
going to be installing? Does that take a special license to install Tesla?
it will be a product, and only their certified installers will be installing.
Are you planning on being one of them? Do you think?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
So, but how that works out in the regions and territories and all that kind of stuff is still.
Right. Oh, I see. I imagine they're pretty tightly controlling that.
Absolutely. I mean, they're controlling the entire process right now, because it's a brand new process, and they want to make sure that their quality control and satisfaction is where they want it to be. So
well, Tesla's such a lot of people either love or don't love Tesla, but one thing they are is innovative, and I feel like if they come up with a great product, that's really going to give these other systems a run for their money that have already been in place, maybe have a history. As Tesla has that name behind them, who knows, what the how good a system they'll be compared to the others, but it'll be interesting to see. But what I'm confused about is I thought Tesla's been putting those roof panels on, or roof shingles on, for a while. You're saying they're announcing in January they're putting roof shingles on?
Well, they're coming out with their version 3.
Oh, it's a new version.
A new version shingle, and it'll be much more for the mass market than versions 1 and 2 were, as far as the componentry and installation of the roof.
Okay.
It's a much more standardized product instead of being like a custom product, if you will.
So it'll be quite a bit less expensive, you think?
It should be less expensive, much faster. A sturdier, stronger, better product all the way around.
Okay, and what came first, Jones Solar or Jones Roofing?
Jones Solar.
Okay. Absolutely. And tell me a little bit about your roofing company.
Like I said, we've been doing roofing for a little over 3 years now. We do commercial and residential. We do certainteed shingles for the most part. And we'll do Duralast.
How good a roof should you put on here in Dallas? How many years?
Right. Well, pretty much about a year ago, almost 2 years ago, shingle companies changed all their ratings. So there's no longer a 10, 20, 30-year roof. Now everything is a lifetime roof. And
go figure.
Right.
Like the roof's really going to last a lifetime.
Absolutely. And what they're saying is the understructure of the roof will last a lifetime, not as much the grains. The granules will obviously impede and fall off, and they will have hail damage. But if you go to the Class 4 shingle as well, it's an entirely new technology. It's a SBS. It's a plastic. They inject plastic in with the asphalt, and it actually gives it a bit of elasticity. So when you think of a normal shingle and the hail hits it and it cracks, that's it. It's just cracked. With the new Class 4 shingles, if it comes in and the hail hits it, it will deform and then it will return to its original position.
Wow.
So that's the real big advantage of doing a Class 4 shingle.
And those are out now, the Class 4?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been installing them for quite a few years. At GAF, Owens Corning, everybody has a Class 4 product.
It's funny. People still talk about 15-year roof, 20-year, 30, and that's what I'm used to. So now we just want to make sure that it's a Class 4. Do they have different different qualities of a Class 4, or is Class 4 just a Class 4?
Yeah, a Class 4 is it's a impact rating. So Class 3, what they do is they take I think it's like a 5-pound little metal ball, and they drop it from 60 inches or something like that, and they drop it repeatedly in the same spot until the shingle cracks, and that's what gives it its rating of a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4.
Okay, I got you.
So the more impacts it takes before it busts is the higher graded it is.
Right.
And then also the insurance companies, since we are in a catastrophic weather area, They do. We find most times that the insurance company will provide a discount on your homeowner's insurance. It depends on your company, but I've seen customers that are usually anywhere between 10 and 30% discount on your homeowner's insurance. So it's quite substantial.
Yeah, it is.
So for the cost to upgrade on a 30 square roof, what that's going to cost you, and what you're going to save off of your insurance premium usually pays for itself in 2 to 3 years doing the upgrade on the roof.
Right.
Plus you've got a roof that's not, like if a class 3 is like a 5-year roof, here in the area for hail damage before you have to replace it, then a class 4 roof will probably be a minimum of a 10 to 15-year roof.
Okay. But even that could be nullified with hailstones the right size.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's softballs from outer space are not going to stop anything. So
okay, well, Chad, thank you very much for visiting with us. I've learned so much about solar, and I'll certainly, anybody that's interested in solar, I'll send them your way. And why don't you give them your phone number again? Again, it's Jones Solar and Roofing, Chad
Yes.
Jones. And why don't you give them your phone number and email one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. My phone number is 972-841-2164. And my easiest email is Chad, CHADD, @jonessolar.com.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, sir.